Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another ShareWise webinar. Today, we're joined with Lorry Hughes, the CEO of Reward Minerals, which is RWD on the ASX. Lorry, I just want to thank you for your time. I know you're a busy man, so to be able to have you on, it's a pleasure. How we're going to structure it today, as many might know, a little bit of a presentation, go through a few key topics that Lorry's excited to talk about within the business, looking forward, what's happening currently, and then obviously moving on to a little bit of a Q&A at the end. So it's a really good opportunity for those watching to have a little bit more of a one-on-one with Lorry himself, ask a few questions, and I'll try and get to them all. But my name's Harry McCaskill, and welcome to another ShareWise webinar, and thank you again, Lorry.
Yeah, good morning, Harry, and good morning, viewers.
Well, I'll let you share your screen so we can sort of get into the presentation. Like I said, there's a few key topics you want to go through. Perfect. And then you can click present.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right, I'll just get straight into it. Should take about 10 minutes to hit the key highlights about Reward Minerals. So Reward Minerals, we are what we believe is a premier Australian potash development company. We have excellent technology, which is a world first that allows potash, that's sulphate of potash, potassium sulphate, to be produced out of seawater for the first time economically in the world. Okay, here's our obligatory disclaimer. I'm sure you all read that. This presentation, or this is a cut down version that has been presented and lodged on the ASX platform a couple of times in the last few months. So I'm happy to talk about it. Let's just have a look at our capital structure. This is a pro forma. So we've got a shareholder approval meeting coming up on the 16th of December to approve a transaction. And that would mean that we would fund the transaction through 2.13 million of new debt. So there we are. We're sitting with 266 million shares out after the transaction is approved, and our executive director, Dr. Michael Rawain, has contributed to the capital raising. So that gives us a market cap of about 19 million, with about 2.5 million cash in the bank and some debt that we're carrying. So all in all, though, it's a very tight capital structure for what we're about to embark on. Here's our team. We're probably the most experienced potash team in a junior company in the world. Dr. Michael Rawain has been heading this company up for approximately 20 years, and most of that time has been directly involved in development of potash projects in Australia. We have Rod Della Vedova, a veteran of the industry, and importantly, 35 years in the solar salt industry, working for Dampier Salt, which is owned by Rio Tinto, majority owned. And we have myself. I've directly spent about 10 years, or over 10 years, directly involved in potash projects. I previously was managing director of Danakali Limited, who discovered a major potash project in Africa. And we have our chief chemist, Warren Hinchcliffe. So Warren and Dr. Michael Rawain were chiefly responsible for developing our technology, of which we've received one patent, and we're looking to lodge another patent of this world-class technology. Okay, so what have we've been up to? We've had a couple of busy years, and we've now just about to complete the acquisition of the Beyondie Potash project. So the acquisition cost, the Beyondie Potash Plant, not the whole project. So the cost involved here is 2.13 million, excluding GST, and that is a fraction of the replacement cost of this plant we're buying. As mentioned, we're funding that through a loan from Dr. Michael Rawain. We believe it's a highly favourable acquisition. It gives us access to a great plant that we can repurpose and reuse, relocate. using our technology to a much more favourable location than when it was actually built. As mentioned, shareholder approval to complete this transaction is the 16th of December. So we've got a highly experienced potash team. We're very happy with the quality of the plant that we have acquired or we're about to acquire. And what this allows us to do is to significantly reduce the capital cost of new development on the coast in conjunction with a solar salt operation. Point 3 there on the slide, you can see the kit that's included in the plant. It was originally designed for about 200,000 tonnes per annum of SOP. SOP is normally worth $1,000 a tonne in Aussie terms. At the moment, we have a lot of specific units, processing units, column flotation, which we won't be using. We'll be selling that off or scrapping it. Cooling circuits, evaporative cooling circuits, heat exchangers, separation centrifuges, granulation plants. All these things are going to be repurposed and used at a fraction of the replacement cost. So very happy about that. Okay, let's just move on, have a closer look at what we're talking about here. So important factor here is in just September 2013, we published a engineering scoping study on what an operation would look like in conjunction with the solar salt operation in the WA coast, right next door to our Carnarvon Potash project. And virtually everything you see here, we can look to reuse that and develop a brand new R&D operating scale, a full-scale R&D plan essentially, for a fraction of the cost of buying a new one. So looking closer, so the Beyondie plant is located about an hour and a half from Newman in WA. And our plan is to essentially partner up with one of these solar salt operations, which is represented by the blue circles there. And we also have Rewards 100% owned CPP, the Carnarvon Potash project, right next door to one. So these solar salt operations have been in operation, some of them for 50 years or more, and others 25 years, 30 years. It's a well-known industry. It sits there, ticks away, utilises seawater to produce industrial salt mainly. A lot of people over the years have looked into how can we extract the sulphate of potash from these operations instead of throwing it back in the sea, which is done. And that's what our technology will allow the world to do. And we plan to first deploy this technology in Western Australia and then roll that out around the world. Here we go. Here's just another helicopter view of the plant. You can see the compaction plant. All this sits in about 4 hectares. Reward essentially has a care and maintenance manager on board. He's looking after the plant while we work out what we're going to do with it, where exactly we're going to move, what engineering we require to commence moving that. So that's going to be a focus of the company over the next 6 months, to get that process commenced. But right now we have a caretaker in there on minimal costs to hold this plant, look after it, and essentially catalogue what we have. So there's a lot there. It's all quite a compact, well put together plant. We were very happy with the engineering on the plant. Unfortunately for the company that was involved, Kalium Lakes, they spent $466 million. A lot of that was debt. And we believe their process was flawed, and their execution was flawed. And it was never really going to work and be profitable. So we're quite happy to pick up the scraps here. Just a quick look at our scoping study I mentioned that we published last year. It was all designed in conjunction with Bechtel Australia, a major engineering firm, global engineering firm. It's designed to be bolted on to a salt operation in the northwest of Western Australia. So that's what generated all that costs. We actually used Pilbara costs, which is really based on construction efforts in the Pilbara around iron ore. So we think we're reasonably conservative there, depending on where we can install this. But overwhelmingly, the key takeaway from here is the operating cost. So we're looking at about $300 a tonne Aussie for SOP, and that is the cheapest in the world. So this is what the potential of this project is with our plant and in conjunction with the solar salt operation. And then you see there the estimated capital costs near approaching 200 million. Now, the focus of our studies the next 6 months is going to be to take the major components of the plant, insert that into our updated engineering scoping study, and drive that capital cost down. So essentially, we believe we'll be able to provide a much more economical project for potential partners involved in the salt industry. And that's the big thing for us going forward. So we are seeking long-term partnerships for SOP development in WA, where we can access the waste brines that they throw away. So as mentioned, these waste brines essentially just get tipped and delivered back into the ocean where they came from, because that's where this fertilizer comes from. So these strategic partnerships, they could be any number of those players there. We have Leichhardt Salt, which is the company right next door to our Kalium Potash project. They just acquired that asset off Rio Tinto and this year. We also have Mitsui. Mitsui's been in operation for 25 years up at Onslow, a major Japanese trading company and producer. You have BCI Minerals, who are building one of the largest new solar salt operations in the world at Mardi. Total cost there for their salt alone is close to 1.6 billion Aussie. So they're a potential partner for us as well. And there are many others, not just in WA, but around the world. And now I thought I'd attach a couple of new slides here to show just what it would look like from a helicopter view of Reward joining up with a solar salt operation and installing our potash project. So this is a aerial view of the Onslow project run by Mitsui. On the right-hand side, you can see these are large ponds. Let's just call this pond 1. So this pond accepts seawater. So seawater is pumped into this pond, large volume. You're looking about 60 square kilometres of pondage here for this project. Seawater is pumped into pond 1, and then it's progressively pumped into the series of ponds. You can't really see the boundaries of the ponds, but it increases concentration through evaporation cycles, and then eventually it gets to these crystallizers here. So these crystallizers is where they harvest the salt. They have mechanical harvesters, and then they transport the salt to a wash plant here and then export the salt. Meanwhile, there's a trench, we'll show you on the next slide, where the potash is essentially trenched back into the ocean. Let's have a look at that. So here's a close-up view of those salt crystallizer ponds. This is the mining lease that Mitsui have. Sorry, Harry, did you just say something?
No, must have just noise. It's all right.
Popping in. That's okay. Sorry about that. So this is the aerial view. We have the salt crystallizer ponds here, and I've highlighted the Bittens disposal trench to the sea. So there's a thin trench here. What that does is take the waste material that's not required in salt production, and that material is commonly termed bitterns. It contains all the potassium, contains sulphate, magnesium, a little bit of salt, and chloride. So that's just a waste product. So what we want to do is utilize that. And what I've shown here is this blue polygon is approximately 500 hectares. And our scoping study determined that that's the area of dedicated potash ponds that we require to produce approximately 100,000 tonnes per annum of SOP product. What I haven't shown here is, we would also require a smaller area, such as 4 to 5 hectares, to install the potash plant, and that can go. There's plenty of space here for that to happen. We'll easily be able to find a place in there. So this is just the concept, just so investors and potential strategic partners can see that this can be done relatively simply.
And just on this topic here, what would be the timeline on being able to build this out, and how much would that how much would that cost, and obviously what's already been purchased for the 2.15 million?
Okay, so the timeline is a bit difficult because it is determined on a deal. So say we struck a partnership with one of the players, let's say within 6 months, we need to basically redo all the engineering studies from the scoping, pre-feasibility and feasibility study. So essentially you're looking at least 2 to 3 years to bed that down, get all the approvals for that. You could commence relocating the plant in that time. As I said, we need to update. If we were to do a partnership with one of the players, the first thing we would do is update the scoping study to base everything on their site, their particular site, not just our Carnarvon site. And that's very important for them. So we haven't struck a deal, but that's what our intention is, and we're working very hard to try and do that in the future. In terms of capital costs, what did I say? 180 million was our engineering scoping study costs. No doubt that will come down significantly once we input the plant components that we are about to purchase. So we're not sure exactly what our savings will be on that capital cost.
Yeah,
could well be 50 or 60 million dollars.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that, there's a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, and the other point to remember is, because this is a world first, we'll be approaching it from an R&D perspective, because we have new technology, brand new patents, and so that's acceptable for R&D refunds until you're up and operating and proven. So there's a lot of money that will come back in that engineering process from day one. Reward Minerals itself, through all its test work over the last 15 years, we've received approximately $20 million back through R&D savings. So, and where else can we take that? So we have Western Australia over here. So we believe our technology is applicable to all these locations where the majority of the world's solar salt from seawater is produced. So as you can see, as owners of the technology, this is where the real growth for the future could well be. And I think that was pretty much all I had. Yeah, so that was all I had.
Perfect. Well, like I said, there's a lot of moving pieces. We've had a few questions come in already, so we may as well get straight into, I guess, a little bit of a Q&A, Lorry. We've had one just say they're a little bit confused. They're saying, is the Beyondie plant tagged for Carnarvon, or is it subject to a deal with another party, then used on their project? And in that case, what happens with Carnarvon?
Well, it could be either. That's right. So our Carnarvon project at this stage is an exploration license. We believe we pegged that because there was potential to partner up with the solar salt project next door. immediately adjacent. So we were able, in order to show these salt companies, we were able to conduct that scoping study on that location. So everything in the scoping study, and that includes transport of final product potash to Geraldton, which is 500 kilometres south of the Carnarvon location. So that was all costed up. So we to get through the ASX, we had to base it on our own project, base the study on our own project. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to publish that. So the question is, we're not sure yet, but well, all those salt players no doubt have looked at what we've been able to publish, and the idea was so that they could take some of our cost structures and inputs and put them into their own spreadsheets and see what the potential is for them to make some additional profit.
Yes. Now, just a few more coming. Hopefully that answered your question there, Carlo. I have one on my end. Obviously, the major thing shareholders want to look at is reducing costs and increasing efficiency. How is that? How do you plan to implement that over the next year, 2, 3 years moving forward to make sure shareholders are seeing the value moving forward?
I guess we can only look at our engineering scoping study in terms of cost, because obviously we're not in production.
Yeah.
But overridingly, we don't believe there's a lot of money in solar salt. Okay, so it's these industries have been there. They sit there for decades and churn out cash, but essentially the price of solar salt has been about $50 for 50 years. Yep. There's a good case for growth in that due to world population, more industrial processes, and that's why companies are out there trying to position themselves and expand and build new projects. Right, they're very long life projects. Once they're up and running, they go forever, and that's part of the attraction we have. So in terms of cost savings, that's exactly what we've been trying to do since we looked at we generated the cost in the scoping study. We've been thinking, well, how can we improve that? Look at the plant. We can just go and buy that plant for $2 million. Look at the savings we've just made. So that needs to be inputted. But also there are other opportunities for savings. The reason that solar salt is such a big is produced so much in the northwest of Western Australia is because it's the ideal climate. And the ideal climate for evaporation is a lot of sun, a lot of wind. So those two things everyone talks about renewables. Okay, so there's currently no renewables operating at any of these salt operations in Western Australia. There might be a little bit of solar for some minor power generation, but why can't we look at tacking on some wind farms? Carnarvon's the most ideal place for wind farms, we think, and solar as well. So there's other savings to be made in terms of operating costs, which are quite unique to northwestern Australia.
Right. So, okay, that makes sense. I'm with you now. And moving on to another question we've got here. How is the second patent you guys just applied for? How is that? How's that application progressing for the technologies?
Yes, it's coming along nicely. So we've been very busy behind the scenes. Obviously, earlier this year we got a patent accepted for our syngenite process, which we were very happy about, which validated a lot of the work that we'd done. But since then, we had come across an additional process, which I can't really talk about too much, but we've had the team in the background in the laboratory working hard to finalise that second patent before we go out and introduce that to a lot of the solar salt players. We need to protect that IP. We think it's very valuable, and we expect to put another patent application in the next 2 weeks.
And with the first patent, obviously, in the next 2 weeks, that next one's coming through. With the first one, what were the key benefits of that one for the business moving forward?
Sorry, what was the question?
With the first patent, how does that position you guys moving forward, and what value does that add, do you see?
Well, the first patent was very good. So that the whole scoping study was based on that first patent technology, which is the syngenite process, and that showed cheapest operating costs in the world were possible using that process. So,
Right.
and we believe this second one, it could well improve that further.
Wow. Okay.
Some improvement, but there's a few nuances that we'd have to, we have to work through.
Yep.
In engineering terms, but
Yep.
there's a lot of potential, and our team, has tried to move as fast as possible to get that patent application in.
Yeah, because again, those things take a lot of time for sure. They don't happen overnight.
Yeah, we'll have that in the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
And then normally what you do is once you submit the application, then there's a bit of back and forth with the patent office to answering queries.
Yep.
And so that's what we did last time. Where they came back to us about 3 times. We put new submissions together to explain our position.
Yeah,
And also, backing up those claims in the patent with laboratory test work.
Yes, of course. The more test work you've got, the better it looks, right?
Yes, right. That's right.
And I guess with other technology, what other technologies could be used to produce SOP from seawater, bitterns and things like that?
Well, we're of the belief that there is no other technology that works, because currently no one around the world is doing this. So we've seen that methods such as flotation and mechanical harvesting of KTMS salts at Kalium Lakes, where the Beyondie project was bought, and Salt Lake Potash, which was a previous failure that also used flotation method, the flotation method of separating potash and salt near Wiluna. So these projects have demonstrated that it doesn't work in Australia. So that is the leading technology that was supplied by the world experts and didn't work. So we think that there is no current technology other than ours that will work for this.
And that sort of leads on to a question that we had a couple of minutes ago come through. How do you assign the value to this technology, this world-class technology that isn't really seen anywhere else? And where is that value coming from?
Yeah, well, it's a bit difficult, isn't it? Because we can't actually say, look, we're using it here. But that's the goal. So we want to get. So we'll have to. Our view is that once we do a partnership, whoever partners with us, they get essentially first use of the technology and an opportunity to at least partly own some of that as well, potentially, depending on how we cut a deal.
Yeah.
But the real value in that technology will be getting our operation up and running.
Yeah. And once these plants are up and running, and you're going to have multiple plants over time, right? But what sort of royalties are you going to be looking at here with the typical plant, and how many can you actually build at a time?
Well, the government royalty situation in Western Australia is currently 2.5% if you are in production before 2027, and then after that time, it increases to 5%. So we think this is ridiculous. To be fair, basically it's precious little support for a growing industry. So the government should be supporting these new developments. So they should have, I believe, we should have a complete royalty holiday until it's up and running and proven, because we're in an R&D phase. We've got strong belief in our technology. There's a lot of evidence to support that. But anyway, we can still, even if it is 5%, we'll still be able to live with that if we're producing the cheapest cost globally.
Yeah, and I guess you mentioned the government, right, and then the royalties. Are you going to the government? Is that how you're going to fund the reallocation of the plant? Or if not, how do you plan on doing so?
Well, we're not relying on government, but we believe that we can enter a partnership that many funding options will emerge. Okay, so once investors see that it's a partnership, essentially is the missing piece for this. We have a plant, we have the technology. Now we need a feed source of brine. So that's what the partnership brings, and the long-term logistical site that's already established, right? Because all these solar salt projects, all the logistics has been in place for decades. And the other thing that we believe is that any new potash project proposing to recover potassium sulphate from seawater, if it's not using our technology, it is absolutely unfundable. Now that's an important point. Because of the failures of the industry so far, no financier will touch this. Okay, and that's what our job is. And with our technology, we need to prove that our technology is best and suitable, and the way to do that is get a partnership and get up and running that way, and everyone will go, oh, it does work. Look at that.
And on that note, I guess obviously we understand that the technology you've got, it's good, but it hasn't been proven at scale. So what gives you the confidence that it's going to work on a large scale, and obviously shareholders, if they've got any doubts, what have you got to tell them to give them a little bit more confidence as well?
Yes, well, we are very confident, and for the reasons are that we've done our homework. So Reward has been listed for over 20 years, approximately 20 years. And as I said before, at least 15 of that has been R&D phase, running laboratory tests, but also running field evaporation trials at our own projects. So Reward has had their own projects over the years. What we've seen is that it's quite easy to transfer what we're seeing in the lab results for very similar processes to our process that we patented, and the next one that we're trying to get a patent on. We've seen it very easily to be replicated in the field. All right, so the key to our technology is extracting the potash directly from a brine and negating the use of mechanical harvesting. So all the magic happens in the processes of the ponds. Okay, so field, how do you test that in the field? You build field size pilot ponds out in the field and test them. So we've had great success in replicating what we've seen in the lab. So we believe that it shouldn't be any different to the processes we've got now.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And obviously, I hope that's answered a few. I mean, we've got to answer a few of those questions that investors or people watching had in mind. But a question I always like to ask, CEOs and executive directors, that I interview. If there's one thing that you would like potential investors or current shareholders to know about Reward, what would it be, and why?
Well, I guess all investors want to know, how am I going to make money? How's the share price going to go up? And I can pocket some good profit, right? And that's what they're in there for. I've been waiting for a while. So the biggest catalyst for us, which allows us to do all these things we've been talking about, is a partnership. So that is the number one thing that we're working on, trying to engage and swap data with all the players that make sense at this point in time. And we're having some good success. So that's the thing we're working on. It's unknown because we're dealing with third parties. However, we're working very hard to get a deal done where we can showcase our technology to the world.
Yeah, I guess, and it sounds like you've got a lot of conversations happening. And I mean, you're not just going to jump in the first one you see. We'll see what's out there and try and get the best partnership that works for you guys and shareholders eventually in the end, right? So loyalty is what you like to see with shareholders, and hopefully there's a few out there that have been around for a long time, and many more to come. But Lorry, again, thank you for your time. And hopefully everyone got their questions in. Everyone, if you joined late or sort of had to leave throughout, it is recorded, so you'll be able to sort of rewatch it back, do whatever. I'm sure Laurie will put it on his socials for everyone to see. But again, welcome. I guess thank you for another webinar, and we'll see you next time, Laurie.
Oh, great. I much appreciated the opportunity to have a chat with you, Harry. Thanks very much.
No, that was awesome. And everyone, have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.